Hello and welcome back. Today we will talk about a story about incremental builds, the Docker cache, and the Git repository. So let's start with Git. At the very beginning of the human history, we used SVN. And as you probably know, that SVN stored metadata in every single subdirectory. But in Git, it's a different case because we have just a top level .git repository, right? So this is just one repository and all the information is inside. It's usually very useful, but sometimes it's a problem. So why is it a problem? Well, what I would like to have is a very fast build, an incremental build, where if something is not changed, that part is not rebuilt. So how can I do it? Probably an easy way is use Docker, because Docker has a very powerful caching mechanism. For example, this is some kind of Docker run or Docker container definition, which means that I'm doing something from this base image, and after that I'm just adding all the required subdirectories, and after that I execute the command. And Docker is caching each layer. So if the results here is not changed, then we don't need to execute the last step. It's a very powerful mechanism. The only important part is that we shouldn't do a copy ... because it means that if anything is changed in the repository, it will be re-executed. So what I should do is just add the absolute minimal thing which is required by a test. So that's good. So we can just do it, but it's not always possible because sometimes we need the Git repository. So this is a linting definition, and you see that I do a copy or add ... which means that everything is added, including the Git repository. The problem is that these tests requires the Git repository. For example, the .git repository includes the previous version, and some of these checks just compare the current version with the previous version. So we need the Git repository here. But the problem is that if anything is if just another commit or other branch is created in the content on the .git, then we couldn't cache it anymore. So I just moved this add git, and what I would like to do is not adding the git here, because these shouldn't use the Git repository. So at least these steps can be cached. But how can I do it? So what I need is just exclude the git here and add here, which means that if nothing has been changed outside of the .git, then the build of or these steps will be ignored. So we had a Docker ignore where we can just put files which won't be added because they are not part of the Docker context. The problem is that I sometimes need the git, here not. So what I need is some kind of exclusion, which is not available by default. But fortunately we use the buildkit. So this Docker build X is very powerful. For example, if we do this one, this seems to be a multi-stage Docker build, which means that some of these steps, for example, this one uses the output of this go build, the previous step. But actually, this is not just a multi-step Docker build. This is something like a makefile. So with the help of Docker build X, I can just execute any of these because they have names. So if it has some name, I can just execute it. So this is something as lint, then I can do this Docker build X build, and I say that, okay, that something should be executed. And that part and all the dependencies will be rebuilt. So this is the add, and it just executed without caching because something changed. So that's fine. I love the buildx build. And the other benefit of buildx or the buildkit based build, then this definition can be updated. So we can use any kind of, we can use Docker file definition, or just, there are a few other syntax that we can use. So what we need is some annotation that, okay, this file is in a different syntax. So let's go back to here. And if I use 1.7, and this is the latest version, and even from this version, I need an experimental version. And in this experimental version, there is a support to exclude actually directories. So by default in the mainstream 1.7 it is not supported, but that's the beauty of the build kit, that you can use any front end. You can even use in other syntax, because under the hood it's compiled to some tree representation of the build steps, and that is the what is sent to the build kit daemon itself. And after that I can just execute it. Oh, there is no such, probably it's labs. Yes, it's labs. So we just execute it, and now you can see that it's exclude, the git is excluded. So if I execute it again, even if the git has something new or something is changed in the git directory, it doesn't really matter, because these steps can be cached. And after the first build, we can just execute it again, and everything is cached. There are some other challenges with the Docker-based builds, but that can be a topic of another video. So, see you next time.